From the outside, the life of an elite athlete looks thrilling, but along with that thrill comes danger that can end a career or even a life. Here are some of the most terrifying sports accidents in history, the ones we can't unsee. In 2020, driver Romain Grosjean was involved in one of the scariest accidents in Formula One history. As Grosjean attempted to overtake another vehicle, they collided. The impact sent Grosjean's car crashing into a wall at 119 miles per hour, with a force equivalent to 67 times his body weight. If the speed and impact weren't terrifying enough, what came next shocked viewers at the racetrack and those watching at home. Grosjean's car burst into flames.
Once you see fire, that's the worst thing you can have. This is bad.
Grosjean was trapped inside for 27 endless seconds as he scrambled to get out, losing one of his racing boots in the process. Miraculously, Grosjean came out of the crash with only minor burns on his hands and a sprained ankle. He missed the final 2 races of 2020's F1 season, then found himself without a team the following year. In September 2025, Grosjean returned to F1, driving for his former team Haas and wearing a helmet that his children had designed for him. Talking about his comeback with Sky Sports, he said, "I was just a bit rusty at first, but then everything came back." A lot of fan forums focus on the most terrifying knockouts in UFC history, but what about the quickest injuries? In the case of former UFC middleweight champion Chris Weidman, he couldn't have expected his fight with Uriah Hall in April 2021 to be over in just 17 seconds, especially not the way it went down.
I was very focused. I was ready to light the division on fire. I felt great.
As the fight began, the opponents squared off and sized each other up. Weidman fired a kick at Hall's shin, then recoiled and collapsed to the mat in agony. With that one powerful kick, Weidman's leg had snapped. Actually, it was more complicated than that. According to ESPN, he'd given himself a compound fracture of his 2 lower leg bones, the tibia and fibula, and the latter bone had punctured the skin through his calf, rendering his injury even more serious. It was gruesome to watch as the medical team rushed to assist Weidman in the octagon. Weidman underwent several surgeries and dealt with an infection along the way, but he was determined to return to the UFC, and he made it.
The visual of that broken leg was just not the way Chris Weidman's career was going to end.
In August 2023, he fought Brad Tavares, losing by unanimous decision. There have been many death-defying wrecks throughout the history of NASCAR, but the Daytona 250 wreck in 2000 is among the worst. It was the debut of the NASCAR Truck Series, and driver Geoff Bodine, who previously won the 1986 Daytona 500, was competing. Halfway through the race, his truck slammed against the catch fence at 190 miles per hour and flipped 9 times. Bodine lost consciousness as the out-of-control truck tore 50 feet of wire mesh from its steel rods, then burst into flames and disintegrated. Footage of the crash shows a completely unrecognizable heap of metal. The accident was so devastating that, at first, many assumed Bodine had been killed until he reached up from under the wreck, miraculously still alive. He suffered a concussion, a facial laceration, a right wrist fracture, and a fractured vertebrae. But the accident didn't stop Bodine. He missed only 10 races before he returned to the road and raced for another 12 years. On June 22, 2022, swimmer Anita Alvarez fainted underwater during a solo free routine at the World Aquatic Championships in Budapest, Hungary. When she started sinking to the bottom of the pool, her coach, Andrea Fuentes, dove in and rescued her. Fuentes suspected something was up. Earlier that day, she noticed that Alvarez's feet were paler than usual. It wasn't the first time Fuentes had to rescue her athlete. The first happened during an Olympic qualifier. Alvarez was carried off on a stretcher, but tests showed that she was actually in good health.
I was like, give everything until the very end, and I did that. And then I remember going down and just being like, uh-oh, like I don't feel too great.
Fainting in pools isn't unheard of for artistic swimmers. It's important that they build lung capacity as they hold their breath for long stretches of time during the routines. Alvarez was medically cleared and, just 2 days later, was ready to compete, but she was sidelined for safety's sake. Coventry City defender David Busst knew the April 1996 match against Manchester United would be scrappy, but there's no way he could have expected what was to come. Barely 2 minutes into play, Busst was fighting for the ball in between Dennis Irwin and Brian McClare when his leg got caught between them. He told TalkSport, "I knew something serious had happened. Something wasn't in the place it should have been. I could see the reaction of players around me." Busst had fractured his right tibia and fibula, and the sight was so gruesome that it made Manchester goalkeeper Peter Schmeichel throw up. Busst had 10 surgeries in 12 days, requiring 26 total procedures to fix the damage, and still he nearly lost his leg. He explained, "It just wasn't healing and I contracted MRSA. After about 3 weeks, it was a question of if they could save the leg from the knee down." Busst eventually was able to walk and even play soccer, but his professional career was over. In 2018, English rugby player Jack Willis injured his right knee so badly that he enrolled in a plumbing course, thinking that he needed a backup plan. He made it back to the field that time, but in 2021, he seriously injured his left knee. It happened during a match between Italy and England, when Italy's Sebastian Negri performed a crocodile roll on Willis during a ruck. A crocodile roll is pretty much what it sounds like. A player grabs an opponent and twists them to the ground the way a crocodile does to his prey. As Negri took him to the ground, Willis erupted into a violent scream from the explosion of pain in his knee. He'd torn his knee ligaments, and his season was over. But his career wasn't. Willis returned to the field and left a legacy. Thanks at least in part to his injury, the crocodile roll was banned by World Rugby. South African cricketer Mark Boucher is revered as one of the best batsmen and wicket-keepers of all time. In 2012, his career ended after a freak accident on the field in a test match between the South African national cricket team and Somerset. South African spin bowler Imran Tahir bowled out the batsman, but as the cricket ball hit the stumps, the bail shot up and hit Boucher in the face, cutting his eye. Boucher required 3 hours of surgery to repair the injury, after which he announced his retirement. In an interview with the Smash Sports podcast in 2024, Boucher described seeing something lying in his gloves after the ball hit him. It was his pupil. Even so, Boucher thought in the moment that he could continue the match. That's when the doctor got real with him. Not only was his cricket career over, his eyesight would probably never be the same. With luck, they might save the eye. After retiring from play, Boucher moved on to coaching. In September 1990, Formula One driver Martin Donnelly got into his Lotus 102 for a practice session in preparation for the Spanish Grand Prix. Minutes later, a suspension failure at 176 miles per hour sent his car crashing into a wall.
One split second can change your life forever. Nothing can prepare you for when that moment comes.
In the documentary Martin Donnelly, Life on the Edge, he recalled, "The car exploded and broke in two. My internal organs were all damaged. My femur came out of the side of my leg, and I was lying on the ground, not breathing, because I'd swallowed my tongue. I don't think the marshals at the time knew how to react. They were trying to feel my wrist for a pulse."
I honestly do think they believed I was dead.
Donnelly was stabilized and transported to a hospital where he spent 7 weeks in a coma. He survived and was able to walk again, but he never returned to the world of F1. Years later, Brad Pitt would play a character based on Donnelly in the film F1. English cricketer Adam Hose experienced a gnarly injury that even had home viewers feeling queasy at the sight of it. In August 2025, during a match between Hose's Trent Rockets and Southern Brave, Hose attempted to stop a shot from going past the boundary line when he slipped and dislocated his right ankle. Play was stopped for 10 minutes while Hose was stabilized and carried off the field. A couple weeks later, Hose took to Instagram to report that he'd had surgery and was on the road to recovery, writing, "The road ahead is long and winding, but I'll get there." The 2022 National Rugby League season was one to forget for Melbourne Storm's Ryan Papenhuyzen. The then 24-year-old rugby player had already experienced hamstring and knee injuries throughout the campaign, but it was about to get worse. During a game against the Canberra Raiders, Papenhuyzen's knee clashed with his opponent's, fracturing his kneecap. After surgery, he spent 13 months recovering, but he came back, if only for a minute. 3 games into his return, he tumbled in an accidental clash with his teammate Nelson Asafa-Solomona, resulting in a fractured and dislocated ankle. Papenhuyzen told the Sydney Morning Herald, "It was horrendous, worse than my knee injury. I looked down and you could see me stick my hand up like a little kid in class. I was in shock." Bad as the injury was, Papenhuyzen would make a full recovery and return to the game. In 2008, Arsenal and Croatia's 24-year-old striker Eduardo da Silva was one of the hottest prospects in European soccer. 2 days before his 25th birthday, da Silva experienced what's often referred to as the Premier League's worst injury. In a match between Arsenal and Birmingham City, opposition defender Martin Taylor launched into a tackle that left da Silva in a heap, and with a broken left fibula, and an open dislocation of his left ankle. In a 2024 interview with The Sun, da Silva explained, "It was a brutal tackle. I cleared the ball and my standing foot was planted on the ground, supporting my body. That's when the impact came. I fell to the ground, and when I looked at my foot, it was pointing sideways." The trauma surgeon told him it was the worst injury he had ever seen and warned da Silva that he might lose his leg. Fortunately, that didn't happen, and Eduardo returned to the field about a year later, although he wasn't the same player he was before his horrifying injury. No list of horrific sports accidents would be complete without including the late Austrian F1 champion Niki Lauda. In 1976, Lauda and his F1 competitors headed to the infamous Nürburgring racetrack in Germany, which had claimed the lives of 5 drivers in just the previous 3 years. The drivers were anxious about racing on the track, for obvious reasons, and Lauda proposed that the race be canceled. A vote was taken, and the consensus was that the event should go ahead. During the race, Lauda lost control of his Ferrari and smashed into a wall. He told Autoweek, "I was going down the straight at 280 kilometers an hour when something broke. I went straight into the wall, and my car turned into a fireball, and I was in there for 55 seconds at 800 degrees until they got me out. I was right on the point of death for days, and I think I really did die once." Lauda was pulled out of the car, but he was badly burned. He lost part of an ear and was left scarred, but Lauda later said he didn't remember many details of the devastating accident. That's probably a good thing. Despite falling into a coma in the hospital and nearly dying from his injuries, Lauda was back behind the wheel 6 weeks later and competing for the championship.
Goalie Clint Malarchuk played in the NHL for 11 seasons and has coached for several major and minor league teams. But despite everything else he has done in the sport, he will always be best known for surviving one of the most horrifying sports accidents ever aired on television. It happened on March 22, 1989. Malarchuk was in net for the Buffalo Sabres when St. Louis Blues player Steve Tuttle crashed into him. Tuttle's skate flipped up and slashed Malarchuk's throat wide open, severing his carotid artery. Malarchuk collapsed and was only saved by the quick thinking of the team trainer Jim Pizzatelli, who happened to be a former Army medic who had served in the Vietnam War. Drawing on his combat experience, Pizzatelli managed to stabilize Malarchuk long enough to get him to the hospital. He only missed a handful of games before returning to the ice. At just 13 years old, professional surfer Bethany Hamilton was already on her way to stardom, having won 2 junior titles. But both her career and life were put in jeopardy on October 31, 2003, when Hamilton was attacked by a 14-foot tiger shark, an attack that completely severed her left arm below the shoulder. A friend fashioned a tourniquet out of a surfboard leash and rushed her to the hospital. Despite losing more than 60% of her blood and going into shock, Hamilton somehow survived. She returned to surfing and has won several titles and a storied career that continues to this day. Her inspirational story was the basis of the hit film Soul Surfer, and she is also the subject of the documentary Bethany Hamilton, Unstoppable. During an interview about the documentary, she told The Guardian, "My fear of losing surfing was greater than my fear of sharks." Professional stock car racer Mike Harmon has competed in more than 250 races over the course of his career, but he will always be remembered for a terrifying incident. It was during a practice session at Bristol Motor Speedway in August 2002, when Harmon crashed into the track's entry gate. The gate swung open, and Harmon's car hit the exposed corner of the wall head-on. The car literally split in half, right down the middle. Even worse? Yes, amazingly, it gets worse. The remnants of the car were then obliterated by the car of Johnny Sauter, who had been racing right behind Harmon. Luckily, Sauter hit the half of the car that Harmon wasn't in. Through a combination of that and some other incredible miracle, Harmon wasn't even injured and walked away from the crash completely unharmed. Talk about luck. In 1986, rugby star Wayne Shelford of the New Zealand All Blacks earned the unofficial title of toughest man to ever live when he survived an absolutely gruesome accident on the pitch. It happened in a match against France that was so violent, it earned the nickname the Battle of Nance. At the bottom of a massive pileup, Shelford was struck in the groin by an opposing player's boot. The player's cleats ripped Shelford's scrotum open, leaving one of his testicles dangling free in the wind. Any normal man would have dropped dead on the spot, but Shelford not only survived, he actually asked the team trainer to stitch his scrotum back together so he could return to the game. In a wide-ranging interview with Stuff, he said, "Getting torn down below wasn't that painful, but the actual concussion lasted about 3 or 4 weeks." Kevin Pearce was one of the biggest, brightest stars on the professional snowboarding circuit. At the 2008 X Games, he became the first athlete in X Games history to win 3 medals in a single day, bagging awards in the superpipe, slopestyle, and big air competitions. But his rising star was suddenly eclipsed on December 31, 2009. While training for the 2010 Winter Olympics, Pearce attempted a difficult maneuver called the cab double cork. It went terribly wrong, and he smashed his head directly into the halfpipe. He was airlifted to a hospital with massive brain trauma, which he somehow survived, though he would spend the next 6 months in the hospital.
I mean, I had to relearn how to walk and talk, and I had to learn how to swallow again, and I had to learn everything from the start.
In 2010, he bravely returned to snowboarding, but only recreationally. His career was officially ended by the accident that he was lucky to survive. According to Today, he has found new passions in things like meditation, yoga, and philanthropy. Unlike most of the athletes we've mentioned, Steve Yeager is actually best known for his sporting accomplishments rather than his accident. He won the World Series MVP in 1981 with the Los Angeles Dodgers as part of a 15-year major league career. But it's a miracle he even had that opportunity given the life-threatening freak injury he experienced back in 1976. Yeager was waiting in the on-deck circle when the bat of his teammate Bill Russell shattered. A jagged chunk of wood splintered off the bat and flew directly into Yeager's throat, lodging in his esophagus. Yeager collapsed, blood spurting from his neck, and he was rushed off for emergency surgery. The immediate action saved his career, his esophagus, and his life. And it also inspired the invention of the throat protector now worn by baseball catchers around the world.
I just want to play. That's the important thing to me, is playing the game of baseball, doing what I can do the best, and that's go out there and try to do what I can do.
Jessica Dube and Bryce Davison were one of Canada's top up-and-coming pair skaters when they entered the Four Continents Ice Skating Championship in Colorado Springs in 2007. Just the year prior, they placed in the top 10 of the World Figure Skating Championships. Dube and Davison were also a dynamic duo who, although speaking different languages, were of the same mind and always in sync. But that chemistry broke for a crucial moment during their routine when Davis and Dube launched into a side-by-side flying camel, which involves extending a leg while spinning somewhere between 40 to 60 miles per hour. Davison's blade came too close to his partner on his third revolution, slicing Dube in the face. Dube fell as blood spilled onto the ice. She was given morphine and rushed to a nearby hospital, where the laceration cut into her cheek and nose and required surgery. She was given 80 stitches, and both she and Davison underwent post-traumatic stress counseling. Davison said he knew they were getting too close right before it happened, and he dealt with immense guilt in the aftermath. The injury could have been worse, either by hitting her eye or jugular vein. But only 10 days after the accident, the pair returned to skating and placed 7th in that year's World Championships. The two went on to have fruitful careers and received a bronze medal at the 2008 competition.
It's such a big surprise to be on the podium, and I'm just so happy.
Montreal Canadiens forward Trent McCleary was seconds away from death after a slap shot stuck a hockey puck into his neck. It was January 29, 2000, when McCleary put himself in between Philadelphia Flyers defenseman Chris Therien and Canadiens goaltender Jeff Hackett. At first, McCleary thought the puck would hit his shin guard, but then he realized how high it was flying. Before he knew it, it hit his throat. He lay on the ice, spitting up large amounts of blood. He couldn't breathe, which confused him, but he was able to stand up and skate to his bench. Moments later, he lost consciousness. It turned out McCleary had a fractured larynx and a collapsed lung. He required an emergency tracheotomy while still wearing his hockey gear and skates. And for 24 hours, he was in critical condition. For a while, he couldn't speak. McCleary, who suffered 2 other major injuries in his career, tried to make a comeback, but his oxygen supply never recovered. He began a second career as a financial advisor and now coaches a Bantam hockey team on the side. McCleary believes that the puck hit him in the unluckiest spot possible, where it would do the most damage. But he still doesn't regret his block and has gone so far to say that he would do it again if he could.